Today on the program is the new Peugeot i208 GTI a big scam? At Renault, 800 engineering positions will be cut in France because of China. To reduce costs, a manufacturer is bringing manual windows back into fashion. And finally, Citroën is starting to tease its upcoming 4x4. Before talking about today's automotive news, let's take a quick moment to talk about Bourse at Boursorama, which is currently offering a nice welcome bonus. Bourse at Boursorama is simply the cheapest bank in France for the past 17 years. And right now you can receive up to 200 euros as a bonus when you open your account with just a simple initial deposit. Plus, Bourse at Boursorama means zero account maintenance fees, free deposits and withdrawals even abroad, a customizable card with immediate or deferred debit, and on average 252 euros saved per year on banking fees. That's enough to buy you about 36 beautiful seat covers. Opening an account is 100% online fast and secure, and most importantly, you can try it out without changing banks. And if one day you decide to switch over permanently, their Easy Move service does the work for you. Taxes, electricity, insurance, Boursorama takes care of all the paperwork while you look at car ads for cars you'll never buy. You can find the link in the description to open your Boursorama account and receive your 200 euros bonus. And, as is often the case in the car world, when you miss out on a good deal, you end up regretting it. Let's talk about a touchy subject. The Peugeot i208 GTI. GTI, three magic letters that for decades have meant grand touring, injection, synonymous with a feisty little engine, the smell of gasoline, and a grin from ear to ear on country roads. But today, Peugeot is giving us a GTI with an electric plug and the prices have dropped. So the question that's on everyone's lips is simple. Is this new Peugeot i208 GTI a scam? Let's start with the heart of the matter, the price. Peugeot is asking us, without batting an eye, for 42,900 euros for this electric 208 GTI, and Peugeot, in a burst of generosity, offers you an immediate discount of 1,850 euros, plus the EV incentive, which brings the total down to under 38,000 euros. Compared to the Alpina 290, which starts at 42,200 euros and has 60 horsepower less than the 208, the Peugeot almost seems affordable. Almost. But let's talk about what's under the hood. The good old gasoline engine is gone. Instead, there's a 281 horsepower electric motor. 0 to 100 is done in 5.5 seconds. That's fast. It's even a tenth of a second better than its cousin, the Lancia Ypsilon HF, which actually shares exactly the same motor and the same 54 kilowatt-hour battery. And then there's the range. Peugeot claims 375 kilometers with the Hankook energy-saving tires. And if you really want to have fun and you go for the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S, the range drops to 352 kilometers. So, if you decide to use all 281 horsepower on a mountain road, you'll spend more time looking for a charging station than taking corners. Peugeot Sport still went all out. Wider tracks, ground clearance lowered by 25 limited slip differential, 355 brakes. On paper, it's a real sports car, but a silent GTI heavy because of its batteries, and one that forces you to plan your trips like a transatlantic flight, really lacks the rebellious spirit of the GTIs of the past. In conclusion, the Peugeot i208 GTI is probably not a bad car. It's powerful, fast, and its chassis seems promising. But at around 40,000 euros for so little versatility, is it way too expensive or just not suited to what people want? Let us know what you think in the comments. Next, at Renault, the flagship of French industry, and a national symbol almost as sacred as the baguette and the right to strike, 800 engineering jobs are going to be cut in France. On Wednesday, June 24, the diamond-shaped group called in its unions to announce to them, with all the delicacy of a bailiff on a December morning, that it would be letting go of 800 engineers by the end of 2027 out of the 5,500 the group has in France, which is about 15% of the workforce. Voluntary departures, the management specifies, as if that nuance were enough to make the pill easier to swallow. To be clear, no one will be pushed out, but if you leave on your own, they won't try to keep you either. And why is that? Well, the answer comes down to two words: China, or more precisely, Chinese automobiles that have decided to make their way into Europe. Chinese manufacturers accounted for less than 3% of the European market in 2024. By the end of May 2026, they already hold 8.8%, and it's rising. BYD, Jake, Sherry, names that 5 years ago meant nothing to anyone, and today are making the financial departments from Stuttgart to Boulogne-Billancourt tremble. In response to this offensive, Renault has a strategy. It's simple, almost brutal. Design cars in 2 years instead of 3. That's actually the feat achieved with the new Twingo, developed largely in Shanghai at the group's research center. Yes, to beat the Chinese, Renault has its cars designed by Chinese engineers. So to make up for it, the group promises to hire between 150 and 200 new permanent engineers specializing in software, electrification, and cybersecurity. It also announces 200,000 hours of training and the retraining of 500 employees for other jobs within the company. Renault calls it a transformation plan, while the unions call it a social plan. The difference between the two basically comes down to who pays for the communication. However, there is one aspect that Renault doesn't quite say out loud, but which the APEC figures are starting to document: artificial intelligence. For the first time in 2025, the recruitment of R&D engineers dropped by 6% in France. This is no coincidence. Where it used to take 10 engineers to simulate the behavior of a chassis, a well-trained algorithm can do just as much in a few hours. Robotics replaced blue-collar workers, and now AI is taking over white-collar jobs. The Guyancourt Tech Center, a temple of French engineering since 1998, and the Villiers-Saint-Frédéric site, which is set to close its doors completely, embody this painful transformation. This isn't deindustrialization. It's something more subtle and perhaps more worrying: a dematerialization of know-how. Next, allow me to ask you a simple question. How much are you willing to pay for an electric car that has no power windows, no touch screen, no speakers, no paint? Slate Auto's answer is $24,950, which is about 22,000 euros. And strangely enough, this might be the smartest idea the auto industry has had in years. Slate Auto is an American startup based in Michigan, backed by Jeff Bezos. The company has raised $1.4 billion to build this ultra-simple pickup truck. Gray composite plastic body, 2-seat cabin, 0 frills, and yet beneath this deliberate austerity, there's something interesting hidden. A 181 horsepower electric motor, a 65 kilowatt-hour LFP battery, offering 329 kilometers of range, and the ability to go from 20 to 80% charge in about 30 minutes. For just 22,000 euros, it's simultaneously the cheapest electric pickup and the cheapest electric vehicle on the American market. The concept is ruthlessly logical. No paint, saving on a paint line that costs hundreds of millions to install. No central screen, instead a holder for your smartphone or tablet. No speakers, you order them from the catalog of 175 available accessories, 80 of which are under $500. And if you want color, Slate offers more than 100 wraps. Even better, the vehicle can be transformed. The 2-seater pickup version at $24,950 can be converted into a 5-seater SUV for an additional $5,000. 3 possible configurations: convertible with roll bars, vertical tailgate like a Jeep Wrangler, or slanted tailgate, which is actually quite nice. Of course, there are some drawbacks. This pickup is planned only for the United States, with first deliveries expected in Q4 2026. Europe is not part of the plan, at least not yet, but the underlying idea is definitely worth considering. In a world where the average European electric car costs over 40,000 euros and features confusing touchscreens, Slate raises an uncomfortable question. What if we've simply made things too complicated? A crank doesn't break down, and at 22,000 euros, it really makes you think. And finally, picture the scene where somewhere on hostile terrain, extreme conditions, critical mission, a French Navy commando arrives in a vehicle painted navy blue with towing hooks shaped like boat cleats, fog lights with wicks inspired by 19th century Morse lanterns, and a roof rack specially designed to carry divers' bags. Under the hood, there's a 1.2-liter 3-cylinder turbo engine, the famous PureTech, the one whose timing belt was bathed in oil and brought Stellantis years of lawsuits, recalls, and bad press. Welcome aboard the Citroën C3 Aircross Marine Nationale. Let's be honest, this flashy model presented recently isn't meant to go into battle. Citroën says it clearly, this is a unique model, a PR exercise meant to celebrate the 400th anniversary of the Marine Nationale. 400 years of history, battles, sailors, and submariners celebrated with an entry-level SUV with a plastic body. The timing, however, is no coincidence. A few days earlier at the Eurosatory 2026 show, Renault unveiled the Four Troops, a real tactical vehicle. Developed in partnership with Thales, capable of coordinating drones and integrating the French Army's Scorpion combat system, Renault plans to produce 10,000 units of derivative drones per year. A serious project grounded in national defense, announced jointly by the CEOs of Renault and Thales. Citroën, on its side, is releasing a flashy model with a tricolor shell on the C-pillar and red and white seats. But let's not be too harsh. The livery of this C3 Aircross actually suits it quite well. With its red accents, widened wheel arches, housing 275 knobby tires, and raised ground clearance, the whole package is coherent, muscular, and tells a story. And then there's that question hanging in the air. And what if this bold model signaled the arrival of an all-wheel drive C3 Aircross? In May 2025, Stellantis had already unveiled the Fiat Grande and Panda 4x4 Manifesto and the Opel Frontera Gravel on the same smart car platform. The C3 Aircross would be the third in this adventurous family. Citroën hasn't confirmed anything, but the official statement highlights the extreme conditions and the traction from its knobby tires. The question of the engine remains. If a C3 Aircross 4x4 were to exist, it would likely use the all-wheel drive system from the Jeep Avenger 4xe with a small electric motor on the rear axle. The pure tech, on the other hand, would wisely stay in the background, which is probably safer for everyone in a combat mission. Thank you all for watching this new video. Don't hesitate to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to make sure you don't miss anything. Bye.